It's that time of year again. A time that, at one point in our history, was one of joy and celebration, but in recent years seems to have been marred by over-commercialization and warring factions that believe only their views should be respected. I'm speaking, of course, of Star Wars season. Yes, Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker is set to hit theaters soon, looking to close out the main saga, and sometimes it seems like it will be going out with a whimper instead of a bang. At least if you listen to the people on the internet constantly saying the most recent films are somehow worse than the prequels, and that the mouse-eared regime has tainted George Lucas's pride and joy forever by turning it into a soulless cash grab. To which I reply, when did you start watching again? Yeah, disillusionment time. Star Wars has always been a cash grab. It's always been commercialized to over 9,000. Heck, the only way Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi got made was Lucas used the merchandising revenue from the original to finance them. Where do you think that joke in Spaceballs came from? And yes, this included spinning off the franchise into TV shows long before anyone even knew what a Mandalorian was. Think I'm making this up?
We are the Ewoks, friendly spirits from the forest grove. We're Ewoks, friendly spirits from the forest grove.
The flame shields are still activated, guys. Yes, there was an animated series on the Ewoks. Remember the creatures that were the most annoying parts of Star Wars circa 1985, but now probably wouldn't crack the top 10 according to the fandom menace? Well, after Return of the Jedi, Lucas saw merchandising dollars in these hybrids of the Berenstain Bears and the Monty Python Killer Rabbit, which led to them getting 2 made-for-TV movies in the 2 subsequent years, and then this animated series in the fall of '85 on ABC. Story development was given to Paul Dini, yes, the man behind the Batman animated series of the 90s, and to the best of my research, this may have been the first series he was given primary control to. So hey, maybe this thing won't turn out so bad after all.
Gunda Wicket, you found the Aura Blossoms.
At least a drought left us a few. I'll make great decorations for the Festival of Hoods tomorrow night. Oh, they're not Aura Blossoms. They're fire folk.
Never get your hopes up, kid. So the story of this first episode is that the forest moon of Endor has been going through a drought for months, yet still looks as lush as the Amazon. And the Ewoks are concerned about fires during this drought that might be caused by these fairies called the Fire Folk, who proceed to get captured by this witch and her giant spider minions, as she wants to use them to get revenge on the Ewoks. What does she want revenge on them for?
Logray and I go back a long way. We are old friends.
That's really all you're gonna say, huh? In the second episode, the witch plans to end all the Ewoks by having her minions take away all the sunberry trees whose berries are used for medicine for the Ewoks or something. And the Ewoks' plan to stop her is covering the bushes in soap that turns them invisible? How did this show come up with something even more nonsensical than hitting an exhaust port the size of a womp rat with proton torpedoes? The good news is that since I'm dealing with a Star Wars production, I have a plethora of online sources to go through to try and find out what the heck I'm dealing with. Most of the Ewoks in this series are in one of 2 families, the Warwicks and the Kintakas. As you can guess, the main characters are the children, primarily Wicket of the Warwicks, and his friend Nisa, daughter of the tribe's chieftain Chirpa of the Kintakas, along with Nisa's cousin Paplu. Now, a lot of these characters were in Return of the Jedi. In fact, Wicket and Paplu were two of the tribe's chief scouts, and Wicket was the one who first found Leia in the forest. Of course, their names were never given in the movie, so unless you read the official novelization like I did, you probably never knew any of this. So, what are these characters like in the show? Well, Wicket acts like a little kid constantly running in search of adventure or whatnot, while Paplu is a troublemaker, usually getting Wicket and the others into bad situations like he's Eddie Haskell.
You need cheering up. How about a nice relaxing game of drop the sack? Now. Oh no. Oh, Kavark.
Not exactly two guys you'd expect to head lookout scouts for the tribe. Okay, for what it's worth, the series is supposedly set years before the original Star Wars trilogy began, and even before the Ewoks TV movies. It's not the worst reason I've seen for de-aging characters in order to make them more appealing to kids. You're probably also wondering, why didn't they have these magic abilities in Return of the Jedi to use against the Imperial troops instead of just resorting to dropping stones on everyone? Actually, this is one case where it is explained. Just not in this show. I'll get to that a bit later. So how did they get them in the first place? As mentioned in the first episode, the main villain here is a Tolga witch named Morag. Years ago, she stole from the Ewoks an artifact called the Sunstar Shadow Stone that possessed secret powers, and at the same time, captured one of their warriors named Logray and made him her slave. However, Logray used his servitude to learn her magical craft in order to escape, and now I'm wondering if Roberta Williams stole this story to make the plot of King's Quest III. Anyway, in the process of escape, Logray split the artifact in two, made it back to the village with the Sunstar piece, and became the tribe's shaman, using the Sunstar's powers to protect the village, while Morag has since been trying to get back both pieces to become the most powerful force on Endor. And now I'm wondering if Nintendo and Deke stole this story to make the plot of the Legend of Zelda cartoon. So yeah, I will give some credit for ultimately fleshing out this important backstory. It just probably would have been better to mention it earlier than the show's 9th episode. Another thing I will give credit for is the animation. It was done by our old friends at Nelvana, and for a TV series in the early to mid-80s, it's pretty impressive. Almost on par with some animated films of the same time period. And I guess it was a nice touch that they tried to tie the series back to the film trilogy with the episode Battle for the Sunstar, in which an Imperial scientist steals the Sunstar and decides to try and use it to overthrow Emperor Palpatine. So then why did the Empire not know about the threat of the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi? Well, it was implied that only the scientist really knew about the Ewoks, and he kinda met a grisly fate at Palpatine's own hands when his treason was exposed. Trust me, it's not even a fraction as bad as the problems the midichlorians created. That episode was eventually renamed the finale for the animated series, even though the show ended never telling us whatever happened to the Sunstar. That wasn't revealed until 2013 in a comic book that explained the Sunstar was destroyed while being used to stop a monster that was awakened from the Empire setting up its base on Endor to build the second Death Star. I have no clue if this is still canon in the wake of Disney purchasing Lucasfilm or not.
We are the Ewoks, one big happy family.
But you know what? It seems like just doing an animated series on the Ewoks was only going halfway. I mean, surely they could have made another cartoon based around an even bigger few side characters that were prime material to be marketed the hell out of for the movie's young audience.
In trouble.
There we go! Yes, Ewoks actually debuted as part of an hour-long time block on ABC called the Ewoks and Droids Adventure Hour, with the second series called Droids. As you can probably guess, this show was all about the wacky adventures of C-3PO and R2-D2 before they ultimately got directly involved with the rebellion of the original trilogy. For the record, it says this series was retroactively declared to take place 4 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith. And right from the start, I do have to commend this show on even more effort than the Ewoks cartoon. The animation is still great, and not only does Anthony Daniels reprise his role as the voice of 3PO, this series does seem to have a continuous storyline going. The first 4 episodes are about the 2 droids being taken in by a pair of speed bike racers from the planet Ingo named Jord Desat and Thal Jobin, who are fighting a group of intergalactic thugs called the Fromm Gang with the help of a rebel secret agent K. Amal and their custom-built land speeder, the White Witch. Yep, they're basically the Star Wars version of the Dukes of Hazzard. The next 5 show them hanging around this desert farmer who ends up finding a lost prince of Tamuzan while they were made to be slaves in a mining colony. And you know, this guy's design looks kinda familiar. Yeah, let me just say, this show came out the same year as Star Chaser: The Legend of Orin, so now I really don't know who's ripping off who. It's like the practice of animation copying everyone else is folding in on itself. If there is one detriment to the show, it's that R2 and 3PO's antics can get kinda annoying.
Have your sensors clogged? I was here first. See if I do cleanup duty for you anymore. That was, too super nervous?
They're supposed to be the main characters, and yet often they're relegated to being even more comic relief than they were in the movies. They're almost like Timon and Pumbaa in this regard, as it seems they just seem to be present any place something bad is going down in the galaxy. Yeah, there was even an episode with Boba Fett. And yet, none of it still feels more forced than putting any of these characters into the prequels. And to be even more fair, when you remember that there were a number of lines in the original movie suggesting that these two had been on numerous adventures together already, that would make this the most logical idea for a prequel series. And it actually does make this line from the first movie make even more sense.
We seem to be made to suffer. It's our lot in life.
This is one of the few cartoon series from this time period where you really do need to watch the episodes in their correct order. Which means it may be better off that this show isn't streaming on Disney Plus, because they would probably get that order completely fracked up. Seriously, guys, how could you get the pilots out of position on almost every single Disney Afternoon series? Oh well, for whatever reason, this series only got 1 season, while Ewoks got picked up for a 2nd. I guess the teddy bears turned out to be more marketable. Like I said, neither one is currently streaming on Disney Plus as of this video's posting, so you'll have to look to the dark side of the web to find them. Is it worth turning to the dark side to see them? Maybe? To be honest, both of these shows turned out better than I thought they would. For obvious attempts to cash in further on the original Star Wars craze, there was a substantial amount of effort put into the settings and characters for both of them, though maybe more effort on some than others. They're definitely not essential viewing for those into the main Star Wars series, but they make decent enough supplements to them. Who knows if the mouse plans on shelving them like they pretty much wiped out the rest of the extended universe. But if you can get your hands on these episodes, they're at least worth a look over to form your own opinion on them. And hey, forming strong opinions about Star Wars seems to be par for the course nowadays. Which leads us to next time, when I'll finally get to the series everyone told me I need to watch. May the Force be with us all on TV Trash.